Ethan Clark, 32, stood frozen on the sidewalk, the cold biting through his leather jacket. He had traveled back 3 months, sacrificing everything for this exact moment, the moment he was supposed to answer the phone. Now, the past was laid bare, except it was twisted, unrecognizable. He saw the familiar, desperate slump of Claire's shoulders as she emerged from the coffee shop, but she was not alone. Adrian Wells, 33, impeccably dressed, held the passenger door open for her. The silver wristwatch flashed under the weak gold light of the street lamp. Claire hesitated for a fraction of a second, her expression etched with a need for immediate shelter. Then she slid into Adrian's black sedan. The reality hit Ethan like a physical blow. He had ignored her call the first time, and though he had returned determined to answer it now, his obsession with correcting every variable had caused just enough delay in the timeline. The small adjustments he made to secure his future only cleared the path for Adrian to step in sooner, providing the immediate support Ethan had once denied. Ethan felt the desperate urge to scream, but the sound caught in his throat. He had won the chance to fix his life, only to lose her faster. The engine started. The red brake lights of Adrian's car illuminated the damp pavement, sharp symbols of distance and finality. This was the brutal consequence of a single moment of negligence. The phone call he let ring out 3 months ago. The sound of the engine starting was the sound of his future being driven away. To understand how Ethan Clark, a man given a literal second chance, managed to screw it up even worse, we have to go back. Back to the night the phone first vibrated, lighting up the screen with her name, and he chose to swipe it away. Ethan Clark woke up to the smell of dust and stale coffee. It was a sensory assault that was deeply familiar yet terrifyingly wrong. He was in his old apartment, the cramped space on Maple Street, the one they had vacated shortly after the silence started. He sat up, the cheap springs of the mattress groaning beneath him. He looked at his hands, rougher and older than they should have felt in this place. The world was dimmer here, saturated in the pale blue light of a memory. He found the calendar on the wall. September 14th. The date hung there, massive and unforgiving. 2 years ago, he was back. He had succeeded in reaching the threshold of his disaster. The immense relief was immediately crushed by paralyzing fear. This was an Appos, a comfortable memory. This was ground zero. Ethan scrambled out of bed, his 32-year-old body moving with the panicked urgency of the man he would become, the haunted man. He checked the time on the old digital clock by the bed. 6:15 p.m. He had less than 5 hours. His gaze fell upon the small, cluttered desk. There, resting against a stack of unopened mail, was the phone. Not his sleek, cracked phone from the future, but the clunky, functional model he had used back then. He picked it up. It felt heavy, a brick of impending fate. He knew the exact coordinates of his failure. 10:47 p.m. That was the minute the call would come, the call he had deliberately let ring out while he was focused on a trivial deadline. He needed to be there. He needed to be physically with Claire before the anxiety, before the collapse, before she felt the desperate need to reach out to anyone, and found him absent. Ethan pulled on his jacket, the familiar leather feeling like armor against the incoming storm. He needed his keys, his wallet, everything. He ran his hands through his messy hair, trying to anchor himself in the reality of the past while carrying the brutal weight of the future. The atmosphere in the small apartment shifted from nostalgic to pressurized. Every second ticking on the clock was a reminder of the 2 years of isolation and self-hatred that awaited him if he failed this single, essential task. He rushed toward the small, wooden bowl where he always tossed his keys. Empty. A sharp, cold jolt of dread hit him. This was an Appos. Right. The keys should be there. He remembered this night vaguely. He had been distracted, late, already stressed about work. Where had he left them? He retraced his steps, his mind screaming against the delay. He tore through the kitchen counter, scattering old receipts and takeout menus. Not there. He checked his jeans pockets from the previous day, then the jacket he had just put on. Empty. Come on, he muttered, his voice ragged. This was the curse of his past self. An inability to focus on the essentials, an inherent negligence that extended beyond just answering the phone. He was struggling against his own character flaws, even with prescience. He finally located the keys underneath a stack of papers near the desk, precisely where he had carelessly dropped them after a long shift. The relief was fleeting, immediately replaced by the realization that 5 minutes had just evaporated. 5 minutes he didn't and oppose. T have to spare. Now, fully galvanized by urgency, Ethan sprinted for the door. He was going straight to Claire's apartment. He wouldn't risk a phone call. He needed eye contact. He needed physical proof of his presence. He hit the landing, fumbling with the lock. The building hallway was cold, dimly lit by a single, buzzing fluorescent tube. He reached the street and headed for his old sedan. It was parked just under the weak, orange glow of the street lamp, the metal reflecting the chill in the air. He reached for the door handle. It was locked. He pressed the remote. Nothing. He tried the key, turned, but the door resisted. The lock mechanism was stiff, resistant, a small, frustrating hurdle. He remembered the door mechanism often jammed on cold nights. He wrestled with the lock, his frustration mounting into true, hot panic. He could not afford a struggle with a cheap, aging car. This was not part of the script. In the future, he often romanticized this moment, imagining he would simply stride in, pick up the phone, and save the day. He hadn't and oppose. T accounted for the petty, infuriating friction of real life. Finally, with a loud, metallic grating sound, the door opened. Ethan threw himself into the driver's seat. He jammed the key into the ignition and turned it hard. The engine cranked once, weakly, then silence. He tried again. Crank, crank, sputter. Silence. And quote, "No, not now," and quote. He growled, slamming his fist onto the steering wheel. He tried a third time, praying to a fate he had already defied. This time, the engine caught, roaring to life with a rough, uneven idle. The cheap car was telling him that everything, absolutely everything, was going to be difficult. Ethan pulled out onto the street, his tires squealing slightly against the wet pavement. He checked his phone. 6:35 p.m. He had wasted 20 minutes fighting his own negligence and his failing machinery. He sped through the familiar streets, the blue-tinged world rushing by. He knew that Claire was likely at home, already on the precipice of the event that would trigger her crisis. He had to reach her before 10:47 p.m., before that wave of despair crashed over her, forcing her to reach out. As he drove, a feeling of deep unease began to settle over him. He wasn't oppose. T just fixing a missed call. He was fighting the inertia of his own life, the sheer force of the timeline pushing him back toward the moment of his greatest failing. He took a sharp turn onto Claire's neighborhood street. It was quiet, residential, lit by softer, yellow lamps. He pulled up 2 blocks from her apartment building. He checked the time. 7:05 p.m. Good. He was early. He could wait, calm down, and walk over casually. He would knock, apologize for the unexpected visit, and simply be present. He wooed and oppose. T leave until the moment of crisis had passed. He cut the engine and let the silence of the night settle. He watched the building entrance, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was so close. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A sleek, silver sedan was pulling up precisely in front of Claire's entrance. It was a luxury model utterly out of place in this quiet, modest block. The driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, dressed in a sharp, light-colored shirt, and he had an easy, confident posture. He walked around the car and waited, looking up at Claire's window. Ethan's breath hitched in his throat. He knew that silhouette. He had only seen him once, years later, in a photograph on a social media profile that had felt like a punch to the gut. Adrian Wells. Adrian was already here. How? This man hadn't and oppose. T entered their lives until much later, after the failed call, after the emotional chasm had opened. Ethan clutched the steering wheel, his knuckles white. The timeline was not simply correcting itself. It was evolving. His delay, his 5 minutes of searching for keys, his fight with the ignition. Had that minuscule shift created the perfect vacuum for Adrian to arrive early? He watched, paralyzed, as Adrian looked casually down at his watch, exhibiting the patience and reliability Ethan should have offered. The front door of Claire's building opened, and there she was, Claire Bennett, looking exactly as he remembered her on the day before the world ended. Hair pulled back, wearing a light dress, her expression already carrying a hint of strain, though she tried to hide it. She walked straight to Adrian. Adrian offered a small, comforting smile. They exchanged brief words. Adrian gently placed his hand on the small of her back, a gesture of ownership and immediate, easy support. Ethan watched from the cold solitude of his car, the sight acting like a physical blow. He hadn't and Oppos. T just returned to the past to fix a mistake. He had returned to find that, in his initial absence, another man had already taken his place, far sooner than history dictated. The unrest had begun. The established life he thought he was recovering was already irrevocably altered. He was the intruder in his own redemption story. Ethan gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. He was racing against a ghost. The memory of the missed call, the silent judgment of the empty apartment. It all drove him forward, accelerating through the dense downtown traffic he hadn't anticipated. He was supposed to be faster. He knew the variables. He knew the time. 9:17 p.m. He knew the place. The small, isolated street near the old municipal library where Claire's car always struggled with the cold nights. He glanced at his phone. 8:55 p.m. 22 minutes. 22 minutes to erase 2 years of crippling regret. He tried the shortcuts, the narrow alleys he remembered using when they were late for dinner, but the past was not identical to his memory. A city maintenance crew had blocked the usual route. Ethan slammed the heel of his hand against the horn, the sound echoing the scream trapped in his chest. "No, no, not now," he muttered, wrestling the car into a sharp turn onto a parallel street. Every second lost was a second gained by Adrian. He remembered the traffic that night 2 years ago. He had been stuck behind a slow-moving delivery truck, irritated, prioritizing the frustration of the drive over the vibrating phone in the passenger seat. This time, he was stuck behind a city bus that seemed determined to stop at every single corner. Ethan reached for the phone, intending to call Claire preemptively, to assure her he was on his way, to prevent the crisis from escalating into a plea for help. He dialed her number. It rang once, twice, then a click. Voicemail. "Claire, pick up. It's me. I'm almost there. Okay? Whatever it is, don't worry, don't move. I just need you to know I'm coming." His voice was ragged, laced with an intensity that, he realized too late, probably sounded unhinged. He hung up. He had scared her, not reassured her. He hadn't and Oppos. T just changed the action. He had changed the emotion leading into the event. The car crawled forward. He needed information. He needed to know if Adrian was already closing in. He called Maya. She answered on the second ring, her voice muffled by background noise, likely a busy late shift. "Ethan? Where are you? You sound frantic." "Maya, I need you to focus." "Claire, is she okay? Has she mentioned anything specific today? Work stress? Anything unusual?" Maya hesitated. "Unusual? No, she seemed fine this morning. Wait, she did mention something odd. She had trouble logging into the secure server earlier, the one with the client files." Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. And she called Adrian. He's the IT consultant handling the migration, remember? She called him because I was busy. The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. Adrian Wells. The man who had been a footnote in his future. A sudden apparition, Wazn and Oppos. A sudden entry at all. Ethan's historical negligence hadn't just created an opening. It had expanded a pre-existing connection. Adrian Wazn and Oppos. The backup plan. He was already integrated into the routine, offering small, reliable solutions where Ethan offered large, sporadic promises. "When was this, Maya?" Ethan asked, his voice low, dangerous. "Around noon." "Why? It was just technical support." "It's never just technical support, Maya," Ethan whispered, ending the call abruptly. The problem had escalated beyond the 9:17 p.m. call. Ethan hadn't an oppose. T just been ignoring her that night. He had been ignoring the framework of their relationship for months, allowing Adrian to build a reliable bridge where Ethan had left a gaping chasm. He abandoned his car 5 blocks from the target location, leaving the keys in the ignition and the engine running, a reckless testament to his desperation. He sprinted the remaining distance. The air was cold, biting. The streetlights cast long, sickly golden shadows that seemed to distort the reality around him. He rounded the final corner, slowing his pace, needing to see the scene before interrupting it. His breath hitched. There was Claire and Oppo's older model sedan, parked awkwardly half on the curb, hazard lights blinking uselessly. The scene of the crisis. He was here. He made it. He checked his phone. 9:16 p.m. 1 minute until the call. He pulled his phone out, holding it ready, thumb hovering over the answer icon. He was shaking but ready. He would say the right things. He would apologize for the day, for the week, for the life they had been building poorly. 9:17 p.m. His phone buzzed wildly in his hand. The familiar, unique vibration pattern he knew signaled Claire and Oppo's number. He stabbed the screen. Claire? I'm here. I'm right here. Turn around, look, and quote, dead air. Only the ragged sound of his own breathing filled the earpiece. A second later, the connection dropped. The screen returned to the home menu. She had called, heard his frantic voice, and disconnected instantly. His intense, unprepared response had failed the one test he had traveled through time to pass. She had hung up before he could redeem himself. Ethan lowered the phone, staring at the blank screen, the cold metal reflecting the desperation in his eyes. He had been too late in spirit, if not in time. Then the second car appeared. Sleek, dark gray. It pulled up smoothly beside Claire and Oppo's disabled vehicle. Adrian. Adrian Wells stepped out, impeccably dressed even on this cold, lonely street. He didn't in Oppo's. He looked frantic or rushed. He looked calm, competent, and entirely expected. He didn't need to race traffic. He had been given the address hours ago, or perhaps was simply closer. Ethan watched, frozen behind the shadow of a large oak tree. Claire emerged from the shadows near her car. She was visibly upset, her shoulders slightly slumped. But the instant she saw Adrian, a shift occurred. Not joy, but immediate relief. The tension visibly drained from her posture. Adrian didn't rush. He didn't question. He simply put a steady hand on her back, guiding her gently away from the disaster, towards his own car. He said something low and comforting that Ethan couldn't and Oppo's hear, but the effect was undeniable. Adrian was the immediate, reliable harbor. Ethan watched as the passenger door closed. Claire settled inside, protected. Adrian walked around to the driver and Oppo's side. As Adrian's car pulled away, the intense red glow of the brake lights flared briefly, a final, burning symbol of distance and finality. Ethan stood alone on the street, the cold seeping into his bones, realizing the horrifying truth. He hadn't an Oppo's. T just failed to answer the call. He had failed to be the man who deserved the call in the first place. His absence had been noticed much earlier, and Adrian had stepped into the role before Ethan had even woken up in the past. Ethan squeezed the cold metal of his car key in his fist, the sharp edges digging painfully into his palm. He was back in time, standing on the precise spot of his failure, but the woman he loved was already being taken care of by the man he was supposed to prevent. He had successfully returned to the past, only to witness the future he dreaded unfolding faster and more efficiently than before. Ethan slammed the gearshift into park, the engine roaring briefly before settling into an angry idle. The streetlights cast long, cold shadows across the deserted residential road. This was the place, the exact location where, years ago, he had been somewhere else, ignoring the vibrating screen on his desk. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic, desperate rhythm trying to outrun the clock. He checked the display on the dash. 3 minutes past the critical time. The moment of crisis should have passed. He missed the call yet again, due to the unexpected detours of the altered timeline. He stared at Claire's apartment building. It was dark, silent, foreboding. He desperately wanted to leap out, race up the stairs, and force the past back into alignment. Then, a movement at the main entrance. The heavy door creaked open, spilling a weak stream of yellow light onto the sidewalk. Claire emerged. She was wearing the same light dress he remembered, but her posture was different. Not defeated, but weary, leaning into herself. She hugged her arms, trying to gather warmth that the cold night air would not give. A wave of relief washed over Ethan. He could still fix this. She was alone. He started to unbuckle his seatbelt. Then he saw the shadow behind her. Adrian Wells stepped out, closing the door softly behind him. He didn't touch her, but the space between them was gone. Adrian was a steady, immovable anchor in the middle of her storm. He looked composed, solid, dependable. He was everything Ethan had failed to be in the original timeline, and everything he had failed to become in this altered one. Ethan froze, his hand dropping from the seatbelt clasp. The cold realization settled like a stone in his stomach. The absence he created hadn't and Appos. T been filled by his return. It had been filled by Adrian long before this moment. He couldn't and Appos. T hear their words, but he watched the silent exchange unfold in agonizing clarity. Claire lifted her eyes to Adrian. There was vulnerability in her gaze, yes, but beneath it was a profound sense of trust. A reliance that she had never found with Ethan during the moments of ultimate distress. Adrian said something short, his expression calm. He didn't offer a flamboyant gesture. He simply offered stability. He reached up, his fingers brushing the loose strands of blonde hair near her face. A gesture so gentle it felt like a violation to Ethan, watching from the darkness. It was a familiarity earned through presence, not history. Adrian then gestured toward a sleek silver sedan parked 50 feet down the street. The same car Ethan had seen earlier, dismissing it as just another vehicle. It was Adrian's. Claire nodded slowly, accepting the silent invitation. She didn't look back at the apartment. She didn't reach for her phone, desperate for a call that would never come from Ethan. She simply turned and walked toward Adrian's car. Ethan's breath hitched. He tasted ash. This was the moment. The exact point where, in the original timeline, Claire had driven herself away, alone and seeking comfort, eventually finding Adrian naturally through professional circles months later. But now, because Ethan had disrupted the flow and created a vacuum by being late to the past, Adrian had entered her orbit sooner, cementing his position as the immediate first responder. Ethan's attempt to fix the timeline had only accelerated his own obsolescence. They reached the sedan. Adrian opened the passenger door. He waited patiently for Claire to settle in, placing a protective hand on the roof of the car. The action was simple, yet devastatingly intimate. Adrian closed the door, walked around, and slid into the driver's seat. The engine started almost silently. The headlights flickered on, cutting through the shadows. Ethan gripped the key in his own ignition, fighting the primal urge to slam his door open, shout her name, and expose the entire impossible truth. I traveled through time for you. I died 1,000 deaths of regret. But he knew what would happen. He would scare her, confuse her, or worse, confirm to her that he was the source of chaos, while Adrian was the source of peace. He watched the red brake lights illuminate the back of Adrian's sedan. They glowed like twin wounds, or perhaps like the only warning sign he should have heeded all along. The car pulled away from the curb, moving slowly, deliberately, fading into the cold, distant perspective of the street. Claire did not look out the window. She was focused inward, sheltered by Adrian's steady driving and quiet presence. Ethan remained motionless, his car idling aggressively on the roadside. He watched the taillights shrink until they merged completely with the surrounding darkness, leaving only the sound of his own heavy breathing and the faint vibration of the engine. The truth hit him with the force of a physical blow, leaving him winded and dizzy. It was never about the phone call. It was about his fundamental inability to prioritize her needs over his own noise. He could rewind time, but he couldn't and Appos. T rewind his character. The moment he ignored her call in the future, he had already built the foundational weakness that Adrian capitalized on in the past. He had failed not because of a wrong turn or a missed signal, but because he was still the man who hesitated. His journey to fix the past had only served to prove that Claire was better off without him, regardless of the timeline. The timeline hadn't and Oppos. T shifted against him. His true self had betrayed him again. Ethan finally released the steering wheel. His hands were shaking. He reached for his phone, the screen still displaying the exact time of the lost moment. He had lost her twice to the same error. He leaned back in his seat, staring into the dark street where Adrian's car had disappeared. The fight was over. The climax of his desperate travel was witnessing the definitive proof that true love requires presence, and he was perpetually absent. This acceptance, this deep, painful clarity, was the first step toward his true redemption. He had to let go of the Claire he wanted, the past he ruined, and accept the painful reality of the future he had created. I know this story is intense, and that is exactly why I share these moments. If you value the truth and enjoy stories that make you think and feel, do this now. Consider subscribing to the channel and comment below what city you are watching from. It is the best way to ensure you never miss the next lesson in life. Ethan stood rooted to the pavement, the faint red glow of Adrian's taillights receding into the cold urban night. The silence that followed was heavy, louder than any argument they ever had. He had returned. He had fought the clock, faced the past versions of himself, and endured the cruel irony of fate, only to arrive at the exact same conclusion he had lived through before. He had an Oppos. T ignored the call this time, but he was an Oppos. T there to answer it either. The time machine had given him a new chance at the same day, but it couldn't and Oppos. T erased the distance he created through months of neglect. That distance had already been filled. Ethan looked down at the key to his apartment, the metal digging into his palm. It was the key to a future he no longer deserved. He had lost her, not to a singular mistake, but to the cumulative weight of his habitual absence. He realized the awful, final truth. Adrian was an Oppos. T the enemy. Adrian was the consequence. The fight was an Oppos. T against the antagonist. The fight was against the careless man Ethan used to be, and that man had already won the battle of destruction. Redemption, Ethan finally understood, was an Oppos. T about seizing back what was lost. It was about accepting the loss and ensuring that the person you cared for found happiness, even if that required your permanent retreat. His redemption wooed an Oppos. T be in her arms. It would be in the quiet, agonizing realization that her pain had ceased the moment he stepped away and Adrian stepped in. He stood there until the streetlights seemed to dim and the air felt impossibly thick with regret. He didn't an Oppos. T chased the car. He didn't an Oppos. T yell. He didn't an Oppos. T performed the desperate actions of a man clinging to ownership. He simply let go. The path to change is rarely about fixing a specific event. It's about altering the fundamental flaw within yourself that caused the event in the first place. Ethan's flaw was believing he had infinite time, that Claire would always be waiting, a constant fixture in his chaotic world. The second chance was never about getting Claire back. It was about learning how to love her properly, and that lesson, cruelly, demanded sacrifice. He needed to ensure her peace, which meant not destabilizing the new foundation she had found. He turned and walked away from that corner, away from the ghost of their life together, and back toward the future, a future that was now undeniably solitary, but grounded in a hard-won maturity. The narrator steps into the story here, addressing the audience directly, in a tone of quiet counsel. Look closely at Ethan Clarke's story. It is not just about time travel and missed phone calls. It is a fundamental truth about human relationships and the brutal currency of time. We are all given chances every single day to be present for the people we claim to love. We rationalize our delays. We prioritize the immediate noise over the essential quiet of connection. We tell ourselves, and quote, I will make it up to them tomorrow, and quote, I will apologize next week, and quote, or and quote, they know I love them even if I'm busy now, and quote. But love does not exist in the abstract future or the nostalgic past. It exists only in the presence of the moment. And when a crisis hits, big or small, the person who shows up, the person who is physically and emotionally available, is the person who earns the bond. Adrian Wells did not steal Claire. Ethan abandoned the space, and Adrian simply occupied the vacuum left behind. Regret is not the pain of a single error. It is the sum total of all the small absences that led to the final catastrophic void. Ethan learned this lesson with shattering clarity. He gained his second chance at time, only to discover that the moment he truly needed to fix was Nanapos. The missed call, but the man who was incapable of prioritizing it. His final act of redemption was the ultimate sacrifice. The realization that the greatest act of love is sometimes releasing the beloved to find the stability and safety they need, even if you are capable of providing it only after they have already moved on. Ethan returned to his original timeline a changed man. He carried the burden of the memory, not as a source of endless bitterness, but as a map for his own new life. He would never again take a single moment for granted. He would never again ignore a call. He learned how to be present, even if the person he learned it for was no longer his. That is the price of second chances when they are too late. They do not give you back the prize. They give you back the lesson. Now, I want to know of you. Commenti aqui imbexo. Qual teria sido a sua escola no meu lugar? Você teria feito esse sacrifício?